Our workshop today is a live question and answer session. Again, we don't have any written questions. This session is an opportunity for you to ask any question you have about the foundation, whether it's about the foundation's programs and what funds they support, humanitarian grants, how to raise funds for the Rotary Foundation, what's going on in the world of polio eradication, or what's new or what's upcoming. We are very honored today to have two panelists with us. Past District Governor Steve Serta is with us. He's the 7950 Stewardship Chair this year, but for next year, he will be your district's Rotary Foundation Chair. We also have Prasad Menon. He's from District 7890. He's also a past district governor. He's our Rotary Foundation Chair in our district, because I'm at 7890 as well. And he is, I call him a GGG, 3 Gs, either a global grant guru or global grant genius. So he's the one, if you have any global grant questions, he's the one to call on. Both Steve and Prasad will serve as our foundation experts and panelists today. Just as an introduction before we get to the questions and answers, I've been in all this training. This 2 weeks, I've got one more week of training for my job for next year. That means I haven't dusted my house in 2 weeks. So I just have all kinds of meetings and sessions. Anyway, but I did have a training session last week. And there was a very highfalutin trainer there. And he made a statement. And he said, without the Rotary Foundation, we have no Rotary. And that set my head spinning and asking myself some questions. And maybe that will, get you to think about some questions for us today. To get the ball rolling, are there any questions that you have for our panelists?
No, not at the moment, Eileen.
None at the moment, okay. Well, let's get started. We have a plan B, and that is I've asked our panelists to think of those questions that they get the most. And why don't I start off, and I'll tell you the questions that I get the most constantly. Let me just share my screen. I wanted to show you something. This is the question I get the most. And I even get it from district governors. So it's not just, just a Rotary member, it's everybody. The question I get most is about Rotary Foundation points. And sometimes you'll hear long-term Rotarians are talking about their foundation points. And newer Rotarians sometimes look confused as they listen to this discussion. What in the heck are they talking about? Well, what are foundation points and who has them? Foundation recognition points, sometimes just referred to as points, are awarded to donors who contribute to the Rotary Foundation through the annual fund, Polio Plus, or if they contribute to a global grant project through the Rotary Foundation. And donors receive one recognition point for every dollar contributed to these funds. So every donor to the Rotary Foundation, except if you donate to the endowment, our kind of savings plan, gets foundation points. And these donations accrue points. So eventually, once an individual Rotarian reaches 1,000 of these points, they can actually award a Paul Harris Fellowship to someone else, because a Paul Harris Fellowship goes to someone who contributes $1,000, either one time or over time, to those three funds, or in whose name $1,000 is contributed. Because I know a lot of clubs like to, award a Paul Harris Fellow to a club member who's really, really done a great job, or maybe a community member. The other thing that clubs sometimes do with these points, because clubs and districts can get points if they donate funds to Polio Plus or the annual fund, which sometimes happens after a fundraiser, they can actually also donate 1,000 points and give someone a Paul Harris Fellow to recognize them. So those are the ways that people can, use their points, and also really, it's great for fundraising. My own club's doing that, something like that right now, to help just beef up our annual giving, because we want to get some really good grants for next year. Steve, would you like to talk about the question you might get most from your club members or district members?
Well, the question that I get the most is club members will say, I want to do a global grant. Well, that's kind of nice, but before you can just do a global grant, you have to find a cause. What are you going to do the grant for? So a lot of times I might recommend to a Rotarian to say, reach out to other clubs in the district and find out if any other club is doing the global grant. If another club is doing the global grant, they'd be more than happy to have clubs contribute to the grant and partner with the grant. So that's kind of a good way to get involved in global grants. So you can't just say you want to do one, you have to have a cause first. Now, many times a new Rotarian a person might join a club, become a new Rotarian, and they might have a connection with the foreign country. For example, a Rotarian joined the Falmouth on the Cape Club. She's from Albania. She's a doctor, an MD in Albania. Now, this was not a global grant, it was a district grant, but she had a connection with the hospital. The hospital desperately needed electricity. They had a hospital with no electricity. So we worked on putting together, it was a district grant that can be done internationally, a grant to put solar electric panels on the roof. That's how they found the cause. Unfortunately, there was a civil war, and so the grant never went through. But in order to do a global grant, you have to have a cause. Okay? I can go on about Safe Passage. Safe Passage is a program in Guatemala that's very passionate to the Weymouth Rotary Club. We went to Safe Passage 2006, and we saw things happening. 2008, went back again, we saw a thing happening. And in 2010, we realized that we could do something with a global grant. And so we put, actually was a district grant the first time, we put a solar hot water heating system on the roof of the elementary school, and we put in a commercial grade dishwasher so that we could give the kids good food and a clean dish. So we found that was the cause that gave us the opportunity to do the grant. And then Weymouth Rotary Club was involved in 3 additional grants for Safe Passage to provide educational methodology for the kids in the dump area because they can't learn the same way we have students learn in the United States because of the condition they're in. So we funded a research team to come up with the proper methodology to teach the kids, and then we taught the teachers how to teach the kids. So that's how we came up with the idea for the global grant. I have some other points, but let's get back to me later, okay?
Okay, good. Thank you, Steve. Marcel, you had a question? You have to unmute.
Yes, I'm very tech savvy.
We all do it.
Anyway, since Steve was talking about global grants, and I know you had to have a partner club in that country where you're doing it, and you can have one or more stateside clubs helping out. Can you also have another foundation, another nonprofit help on a global grant? Contribute some of the funds to it?
Well, I have one of the questions I was going to bring up, just that. Answer is yes. Okay. Either in the host country or in the international country where you're going to do the project, an individual, a foundation, or any nonprofit can donate money towards a global grant. Okay, there are different ways to do it. If you directly donate that money to the club, the club will not get any foundation points, or the individual won't get any foundation points if that is a Rotarian. But if they channel that money through the Rotary Foundation, designating this particular global grant project, the club, the district, and the individual will get foundation points.
Okay.
Does that answer
So,
yeah.
Yeah, it does. So if I donate funds from my foundation through my club, channeling it to the Rotary International Foundation, then the club gets points
Yes.
for that? Okay.
And the district also get the
My
recognition. Yeah.
Would I or my foundation will get the points?
You would get the
You
points.
sending from your own foundation,
Yes.
not as an individual. Your foundation will get the recognition from the Rotary Foundation. You get a letter, but the district and the club will get the point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Paulette?
I understand within the past year or two, there have been changes in the matching and that the Rotary Foundation no longer matches the club donation or individual donations. Is that true? And can you explain that, please?
Eileen?
It used to be the foundation used to match the individual or the club donation at 50%, but now they're not matching it at all. Can you talk about that and maybe explain, give us some suggestions on how we can work around that?
Yeah, this is Eileen. It's interesting because that training session that I was on last week talked a little bit about these changes that are happening. And maybe I should just explain why they're happening. And one of the reasons is the Global Grant Program in particular has been extremely successful. And I'll just give you a couple of figures. I'm not much of a figure person, but when we started with global grants, they, for the future vision and everything made changes to the grant process. This was 2013, 2014. That first year, there were 473 global grants. And if anyone's familiar with global grants, the minimum project budget is $30,000. So these are, they're not chop liver little grants, but they're good sized grants. And then they go up from there. Last year, 1920, we had 956 global grants. So the global grants in that period of time, was like 6 years, went up over 100%. However, the annual fund, where we get the funds for the World Fund matches, only went up 6%. So there's a gap. So the Rotary Foundation trustees got together and tried to determine how we can get the most bang for our buck. It was either keep with the same percentages that we had, so that the club donations would be matched 50% by the World Fund, or which would limit how many global grants we would have, or spread the wealth out. So they decided to cut that 50% match of club donations. they felt that it was more important to give more clubs and districts the opportunity to do larger projects. So, it's just that, and I guess the moral to the story is we have to support the annual fund share. That's where these funds, that helps our districts get district designated funds for global and district grants. And it also contributes to the World Fund because our donations are split between the World Fund and the annual fund. So that's why they did it. And they wanted to preserve the foundation. So it's just like when you're doing your home budget, family budget, is you can't, if you don't have as much income coming in, you can't be spending on, new cars and, for coats or whatever, that's my exaggerating way, but that's the reason they did that. They wanted to, as many clubs and districts do as many global grants as they can. Any other questions about that?
Eileen, the other change is that in July, the districts are not going to get as much of a match either. Can you explain that too?
Yeah, that's for the same reason. In past years, it's been 100% match of our district designated funds. The World Fund match is actually this year too, is matching 100% of the district grant funds. And next year, starting July 1st, it will be 80%. And it's basically for the same reason. They want, they have to, until annual fund share donations go up. I mean, this is the fuel that runs our grants and our districts for both global and district grants. They had to make some changes. And again, it's so as many global grants can be done as possible. It's either, do you want to just have, a few chosen clubs and districts get global grants, or you want to spread the wealth? And it's really for the same reason. And, I got my goals for next year. We want to increase the annual fund share, and we also want to increase global grants. So they have to kind of meet together. And I saw a graph. It's like, the global grants are going off the chart and the annual fund isn't keeping up with them. So that's the reasoning. Roger?
Hi, I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Fall River, Massachusetts, and we've got sister clubs in Ponta Delgada, Azores, and Morelia, Mexico. And our sister club in Morelia has been very active in global grants to do projects in the Morelia area. And the multiplier effect of the match was amazing in years past. I mean, they would do a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 project, largely in healthcare. And, our club and other sources would, make contributions. But, and I had this all mapped out, but it was amazing the way the Rotary Club of Fall River could donate $2,000, which would be matched by the district, which would be matched by Rotary International. And then RI would match the club at a percentage and the district at a percentage. And our $2,000, because of that multiplier effect, became $7,000 that went to our sister club in Morelia. So unfortunate that we're losing that. I understand why it's happening, but I did a presentation to my club about that multiplier effect, and I titled that "The Power of Rotary," and how our $2,000 contribution became, and I'm making up numbers now, but our 2,000 became 7. It was something that extreme. It was pretty powerful what we were able to do in supporting our sister club in Mexico. Thank you.
Sure. I
Yes,
guess
it's powerful, but little less until, the piggy bank fill up, then we can go back to the old matching proportions, but it may take some time.
I guess
Eileen, the question that Marcel said about his foundation, can you and Prasad explain how he could actually, because I know Angela's club has this, he could actually turn his foundation into a perpetual gift to his club by making it a donor advised fund that could come back, which would be another alternative for his foundation that he has?
Yeah, there is we have two advisors in our zone. One is through Rotary. Her name is Amanda Lawson. And we also have Marilyn Bedell, who's these titles drive me crazy, but she's major gifts. Let's just put it that way. There's another E and I never can remember. That's the trouble with Rotary titles. They're too long and you don't want to do acronyms. But anyway, she does major gifts. If Marcel has some questions, they would really be the people to talk to, because this is a whole, I am not an accountant, I'm not a financial planner, so I wouldn't want to give anybody the wrong advice, but they would be able to help him if he's interested in doing, the whatever you said, sorry, the designated, what is it called again? I'm losing.
Donor advice fund.
Thank you. They would be able to help. So if Marcel would like to, we're going to have our email addresses up at the end. If he would like to get more information, he can shoot us an email and we'll get him to the right people, because these things are available, but they need to be, it's like a one-on-one talk with someone who knows what they're doing. And I don't know if Steve and Prasad have ever been involved.
Well, there's a lot of legal and accounting issues involved. So you have to talk to the specialist at the Rotary Foundation. We can give a general idea, but to make it sure how it goes, you have to talk to them.
But Angela, who's on the line, can talk about how the Quincy Club has really benefited from that gift that keeps coming back to the club, which is another, I think, something we forget to tell our members and our clubs about.
Well, I could just speak briefly about it, but we were the beneficiary of from someone's will, and it was set up as a donor advised fund, and we get, it's a reoccurring grant that we get to our club every year based on the interest minus an administrative fee that comes back to our club every year, and it has to fit the guidelines of what the person who gave the money originally has to, mostly towards literacy has been the main focus. So that's how that has worked over the years. But it's managed by Rotary International, and every year we get notified as to what the amount of the interest that was earned.
And I think Prasad has someone in his club that has a donor advised fund.
Yes. And whenever we need fund for certain scholarship or global grant, he directly advised the Rotary Foundation, and they will issue the funds towards that particular cause. So basically, it is a donor advised fund. He is the donor. He advises the foundation where he wants the money to go to, and the Rotary Foundation directs that to that particular cause. You can also set up on a permanent basis. That's what Chris was talking about. Yeah. Different ways of doing it, but to set it up and make it work, better to talk to the Rotary Foundation specialist on
that. Steve or Prasad, do you have another question?
Yes.
You got?
Yes. They always get this question. The global grant has to be in a foreign country. Answer is no. A global grant can be in our own district, anywhere in the world where there is a Rotary exists. Okay, so very rarely we see global grant project originating in our own district, especially in the United States. But it is possible. Only thing you need to do is to find a good project where we want to put the money in. And also you need an international partner. But our zone is connected with the zone 32 is connected with zone 28. That is pretty well United States and Canada. And most people, Rotarians in zone 32 have connections in zone 28 because we have so many common things going on. So here you are. If you need an international project, if you want a international partner, Canadians are there. So many districts in zone 28. And the same way, if they want to do a project, here we are, zone 32, so many districts. So I don't think we have tapped that particular resources as much we could in the past. So that is a possibility. Only one project I can think of that has happened in the past is providing the running water in a Navajo reservation in New Mexico. That is a collaboration between these two, zone 28 and zone 32, and a couple of districts in India. So that's a big possibility. Clubs should look into it. And generally speaking, these two zones are relatively affluent. So should have enough, DDF available. So that is one thing.
Chris, District 7950 did do that several years ago. We had a $250,000 grant that the Toronto Club was our international host.
Right.
And then we were able to process that through us, and it was through the Martha's Vineyard Club.
Yeah, it's a great possibility. Very rarely used.
Yeah, in our district a few years ago, actually it was my club, we did what I call an incoming global grant. There's an institution in West Hartford called the American School for the Deaf. It's the oldest school for the deaf in the United States, and I think it may be North America. And we partnered with St. Thomas Virgin Islands. Even though the Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, are considered a territory of the United States, Rotary considers them an international partner. So we did a great project in that school, bringing in a video studio, because individuals who are deaf are very visual. And we actually, our club members got to see the opening of the video studio, and they actually built this huge state-of-the-art auditorium that the whole thing shook. And they shook the vibrations, because a lot of the profoundly deaf, obviously they can't hear, but they can feel the vibrations. And these kids, we saw these kids and their eyes were lit up, and I said, oh my goodness. And that, what's good about doing something like that is you actually see what's going on, unless you travel to a foreign country, because the global grant is in India or Africa. You're not going to see the impact, and that was really great. And I guess the same with if you do a district grant, if you get your club members involved, it brings them together, which is really great. Steve, did you have anything else? I know we only have a few minutes left. I got the 5-minute high sign.
I see that. Sometimes people ask me what's should they be aware of when they're doing a global grant, and a couple things. If you're going to do a global grant, there's going to be a time zone difference between you and your partner. So you're going to have to make sure you're able to deal with the time zones. There's also language and interpretation. So what might mean one thing in one language might not be the same in another language. So you have to be aware of that. Also, you have to respect the local cultural differences. Okay, some countries, women are not allowed in Rotary meetings. And so, you just have to understand that. Some countries have personal space issues that you have to be aware of. Roger Cabral has a nice situation where they have a sister club. So they've already established a strong personal relationship with the host and the international club. So if you're going to go into an area for the first time, it's really important that you establish that strong relationship. And you have to continue to keep that relationship going. For example, many in clubs, like in our clubs, different people take different positions. So a treasurer, a club treasurer might change from year to year. Well, you need to know that your international club, the treasurer is changing, because that's important when you're doing the progress reports and final reports. So you have to be committed to doing some travel between countries. So these are all things that you need to be aware of when you're considering a global grant. And it looks like the time is up. So thank you very much for participating and giving us an opportunity to share some ideas.
We have a couple minutes. I'm not sure how many left. So I just wanted to put our contact information real quick. I don't mean to interrupt, but if you want to do a screenshot of it, you can do that, or just jot it down if you have any questions. Or if I know Marcel, if he wants to get more information to contact about the donor advice fund, he can do that. So we can keep chatting until they throw us off the screen. But thank you all. If we get tossed out, thank you for attending. And really thank you for being a great supporter of the Rotary Foundation. So we can keep talking.
Yeah, I thought this session is up till 10 o'clock, right?
Well, we started early, so I don't know when he's going to end it. So
I see. Yeah.
I'll stop the share. We can just keep talking if anybody has any questions or comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angela?
I just wanted to comment that I think Steve and Chris from my district know that I've recently been visiting some of the clubs virtually. And one of the things I've been working on is much more basic than we're talking about today, which was just showing people how to go on to My Rotary and learning how to see what their donations actually are. And just for a suggestion for the participants here, that I think that's a really good exercise for people to do with their clubs in either their district or just on their own. Because what I found, I've spoken to 8 different clubs in the last 2 months. Probably 50% of the people have either never been on My Rotary, or they were on it a couple of times and they've forgotten their password. And just the exercise of doing that with people was really great. And some of the club presidents got back to me and told me that, you know, they went and they helped print it out for everybody what their donations were. And a lot of people weren't even aware that, you know, maybe they're only $50 away from the next Paul Harris level. And it's just sort of, you have to constantly remind people to go back and actually look at their own donation history, which in the past they never were really able to do. It was always on paper, but now people can do it on their own home computer. And it's just a useful thing to maybe go back to the basics with people as well.
Anyway, thank you, Angela. We have just a couple seconds, so real quick, anybody? You're getting the countdown.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you again.
Thank you.